Have you ever been alone in a dark room and suddenly felt like someone was standing right behind you? No footsteps, no voice, just the heavy weight of a presence you can't explain. Some say the hotel is haunted. Some say it's cursed, but no one truly knows. Because those who've seen what lives in those hallways rarely speak of it again. So listen closely. Lock your doors and don't look behind you. What you're about to hear is not just a story, it's a warning. And once you step inside these walls with me, there's no turning back. Now, let me tell you what really happened on that stormy night. That night, the storm was relentless. Rain pounded against the old wooden windows, and the howling wind made the entire building creak as if the hotel itself were alive. I had worked there for only a few months, taking the night shift to save up money while I figured out what to do with my life. During the day, the hotel was breathtaking. Grand chandeliers that shimmered like crystal waterfalls, a polished bar that glowed warm and golden under the soft light, long hallways lined with portraits of people long gone. Guests would marvel at its beauty, taking photos and whispering about its history. But at night, everything changed. The halls grew cold and silent, and the smiling faces in the portraits seemed to watch you, their painted eyes following each step you took. That night, it was just me and Daniel, the security guard. He had been working there for over a decade and knew every creaky floorboard and secret passageway. Daniel was a quiet man, polite, with tired eyes. Every now and then he would share a story about the hotel's past, but he never stayed long in the dark hallways alone. When I asked him once if he believed the place was haunted, he only gave me a strange look and said, "There are things here you shouldn't try to understand." Around midnight, I stepped outside the back door to smoke. The air was thick with rain and the sharp scent of wet earth. When I returned inside, I froze. Two large flags that were normally tucked neatly behind the bar were now spread across the countertop, perfectly laid out as if someone had placed them there deliberately to block my way. The thing is, just 5 minutes earlier, everything had been in its place. I hadn't heard a sound. No one could have entered that area without me or Daniel noticing. "Daniel," I called out, my voice shaking slightly. He came over quickly his flashlight beam cutting through the dark lobby. "What is it?" he asked. I pointed to the flags. Did you move these?" He frowned, shaking his head. "No. I've been at the front door the whole time. No one came through here." A chill rippled through me. It wasn't just that the flags had moved. It was how carefully they had been arranged, like someone was sending me a message, a silent warning. I forced myself to walk closer to the bar. My heart thudded in my chest as I glanced at the large mirror hanging behind the shelves of bottles, and that's when I saw him. A man sitting at the far end of the bar. His posture was rigid, his face pale and tense, jaw clenched so tightly I thought his teeth might break. His dark shirt blended with the shadows, but his eyes were hollow, empty, yet filled with rage. I gasped and spun around, but there was no one there. The stools were empty. The entire bar was silent except for the steady patter of rain on the roof. Slowly, trembling, I turned back to the mirror. The man was gone. The next morning, I asked Daniel about it. He stared at me for a long moment before saying quietly, "Years ago, there was a fight in that very bar. A man was killed right at the corner where you saw him. Some say his spirit never left." My stomach turned. I wanted to laugh it off, to convince myself it was just a trick of the light. But deep down, I knew what I had seen was real. The following week, I worked another stormy night. Around 2 a.m., the hotel was completely silent. Decided to use the restroom at the far end of the hall. The moment I locked the stall door, the entire door began to shake violently. It wasn't just a knock. It was as if someone or something was trying to rip it off its hinges. "Hello, who's there?" I shouted. No answer, just the relentless rattling and pounding. My pulse raced as I crouched down, peering under the stall door. Nothing, no feet, no shadow, nothing. The sound grew louder, the whole stall trembling around me. The chaise latch clattered wildly, like it was seconds from breaking. I pressed myself against the far wall, tears stinging my eyes, and then it stopped just like that. Silence. Only my ragged breathing and the faint sound of rain outside. I waited for a full minute before daring to open the stall. The hallway beyond was completely empty. The lights flickered faintly, but there was no sign of anyone. I stumbled back to the security room where the camera monitors were. My hands were shaking as I scanned the screens. Everything looked normal until camera 2, the one pointed at the exhibition room, suddenly went to static, a mess of white noise. No, I muttered. flashlight. I hurried down the hall to the exhibition room. The moment I opened the door, a blast of freezing air hit me so hard it stole my breath. The room was pitch black. My flashlight flickered, dimming as if the batteries were dying. I could feel it. Someone was watching me, not from a corner or a shadow, but from everywhere, all at once. Behind me, the soft creak of a floorboard. I spun around. Nothing, only the suffocating darkness. Who's there? I whispered, my voice barely audible. My breath hung in the cold air like smoke. Then the door slammed shut behind me. The sound echoed through the empty room like a gunshot. I screamed and ran to the door, yanking it open. And when I stepped back into the hall, the lights were all on again. The room behind me was perfectly normal, as if nothing had happened. When I returned to the security room, the camera feed was back to normal, showing a perfectly still, empty exhibition hall. By now, I was terrified, but I couldn't quit. I needed the job, and more than that, I needed answers. I had to know what was happening in this place. Around 3 a.m., Daniel went outside to check the generator. I was alone in the lobby, trying to steady my breathing, and that's when I saw movement. At the far end of the main hallway, a man tall, wearing a perfectly tailored suit. He walked with slow, deliberate steps, as though he was from another time entirely. The shadows seemed to cling to him. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I could feel his presence, heavy, sorrowful, and ancient. I froze, barely daring to breathe. When I finally took a step forward, he turned the corner and vanished. Tiengyo Ritman, Tiengkwa Keoket. Daniel returned moments later and saw my terrified expression. Before I could speak, a new sound filled the hall. The soft, steady footsteps of someone walking around us, circling us, though there was no one there. Daniel's face went pale. He whispered, "It's been years since anyone has seen him this clearly. If you saw him tonight, he saw you too." My knees went weak. I grabbed Daniel's arm and begged him to stay by my side. We huddled at the front desk, neither of us daring to move, and then, at exactly 3 a.m., every single light in the hotel went out. Pitch black. Total silence except for the pounding of our hearts. And then a voice, soft and chilling, whispered right behind my ear. "Just breathe. You'll be okay." I screamed and spun around. There was no one there. Suddenly, the lights flickered back on. Everything looked completely normal again, but nothing felt normal. As dawn approached, I prepared to leave. But before I stepped out the door, I turned back for one last look down the main hallway. There he was, the man in the suit, standing perfectly still at the far end, watching me. He raised his head and gave a slow, deliberate nod, a gesture that felt like both a farewell and a warning, and then he vanished into the shadows. Daniel returned moments later and saw my terrified expression. Before I could speak, a new sound filled the hall, the soft, steady footsteps of someone walking around us, circling us, though there was no one there. Daniel's face went pale. He whispered, "It's been years since anyone has seen him this clearly. If you saw him tonight, he saw you too." My knees went weak. I grabbed Daniel's arm and begged him to stay by my side. We huddled at the front desk, neither of us daring to move, and then, at exactly 3 a.m., every single light in the hotel went out. Pitch black, total silence except for the pounding of our hearts, and then a voice, soft and chilling, whispered right behind my ear, "Just breathe, you'll be okay." I screamed and spun around. There was no one there. Suddenly, the lights flickered back on. Everything looked completely normal again, but nothing felt normal. As dawn approached, I prepared to leave, but before I stepped out the door, I turned back for one last look down the main hallway. There he was, the man in the suit, standing perfectly still at the far end, watching me. He raised his head and gave a slow, deliberate nod, a gesture that felt like both a farewell and a warning, and then he vanished into the shadows. I quit that day. I never returned to that hotel. But sometimes on stormy nights like this, when the rain pounds against my window and the wind moans through the trees, I swear I can still hear that same whisper behind me. "Just breathe, you'll be okay." And I wonder, maybe some spirits don't want to harm us. Maybe they just want to be seen, to be remembered, to be comforted in the endless darkness they can't escape. So if you ever find yourself in a place so silent that you can hear your own heartbeat, don't make the mistake of thinking you're alone, because in places like that, you never truly are.